Hello, everyone. Good night and welcome to Women Driving Innovations event, where we'll be exploring the importance of sustainability in a new normal world. I am Adi Vicens, and I am the Vice Chair for Women Driving Innovation, a special interest group of the Atlanta Innovation Forum. If you joined us earlier, you may have heard that if you have any thought-provoking questions, please use the chat box. We'll be collecting those for the Q&A session towards the end of the program. Please follow us at Women Driving Innovation for social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Tonight, we have a fantastic panel where we'll be talking about and exploring the importance of sustainability in a new normal world. But before we start, we would like to thank our sponsors, RightPoint, Stone Resource Group, Carabiner Communications, Stable Kernel, and Cox Communications. To kick off tonight's program, I would like to welcome our top innovator, Stuart Wood. He is the founder and CEO of Last Bottle Clothing. Stuart?
Thank you.
Give me a second while I give you control. There you go, Stuart.
I'm here to talk to you tonight about one of the great ecological disasters of our time, plastic pollution. The World Economic Forum has forecasted that by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. To me, that's both shocking and vilely disgusting. Hello, I'm Stuart Wood, CEO of Last Bottle Clothing, where we're making the world's first truly sustainable apparel. We make our clothes entirely from recycled plastic bottles. And just as importantly, we make our clothing to be recycled. So when our customers are done with our soft, comfortable clothes, they send them back to us. We chop them up, melt them down, and make them into new apparel. It's called closed loop manufacturing. It's part of the circular economy. And it's what's going to really be the future of apparel manufacturing, as well as plenty of other manufacturing. So I talked a little bit about plastic pollution, but did you know that the apparel industry as a whole is the world's second biggest polluter? But at Last Bottle Clothing, we aim to change that. We try to make our clothes in the cleanest way possible. We use no pesticides or defoliants, unlike standard cotton. We use 500 times less fresh water than organic cotton. And virgin polyester, the raw material for that is crude oil. It's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico or the Middle East, where our raw material is possibly the plastic bottle you recycled 2 months ago. And the vast majority of clothing travels 16,000 miles before it reaches you, creating a massive carbon footprint. And our clothes are made in an 85-mile radius right here in the Southeast. So how do we do it? Great question. So we bring in plastic bottles that are chopped up, melted down, and then extruded multiple times into a long, thin strand about 1/5 the diameter of a human hair. It's chopped up to resemble cotton fiber, and at that point, we spin it into yarn, and then we knit it into fabric, make it into clothing, and then when our customers are done wearing our soft, comfortable clothes, they send them back to us, and we chop them up, melt them down, and do it again. And we can do this over and over and over again. And this means the plastic never needs to go out into the environment. So 34% of US adults are actively looking for environmentally friendly options every time they spend $1 on goods and services. And while we do sell direct to customer, the vast majority of our efforts are put towards enterprise sales. And the reason we do that is to magnify our impact, as well as create a firm financial foundation to continue the other efforts of the company. And I was told, I have 3 minutes to talk to you guys tonight and tell you about the magic that we're doing at Last Bottle Clothing, but that I should come with and ask for some help. And tonight I ask you for introductions to your companies. I'm looking for folks on the sustainability teams, the CSR groups, or the folks that plan events. Essentially, we can provide your company with unique gifts and decrease your environmental impact. So at Last Bottle Clothing, whoops, sorry guys. At Last Bottle Clothing, we're on a mission to tackle plastic pollution and revolutionize the apparel industry. So we're going to show people we can do very well while doing a lot of good. And we hope that you guys join us on this mission. Thank you guys very much for letting me talk to you tonight, and I look forward to answering your questions on the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart.
Bear with me while I pass this back to Annalise. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Stuart. Fascinating work. I think that we'll have a little bit of time to talk about the work that you and others in the panel are doing. And I want to say that I personally, I've seen the product in person. It's super soft. I actually had to be walked through, and somebody had to tell me what it was made of, because it's unbelievable. Thanks again, Stuart, for your time and the work that you're doing. Stuart's information can be found here, so if you want to connect one-on-one with him. And like I said, he's going to be back to answer any questions that you guys may have during our Q&A session. Okay, so continuing the conversation around sustainability, I want to introduce you guys to Diane Estner. She is the president and CEO of DANNI Enterprises. Diane is actually also one of the founding members of Women Driving Innovation and very passionate about the subject. Diane?
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. The reason we're here is obviously because it matters and it's meaningful, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to hope to, put it all into a short amount of time, and encourage everyone to ask questions and, reach out to us afterwards if you'd like, and let's create this consciousness. Tonight, we're talking about the post-COVID world with sustainability, and there's a couple things that we want to talk about, but let me give everyone a chance to get to know our other panelists. And so, Robin, do you want to start and share a little bit?
Sure. Thank you, Diane. Diane, I really appreciate being here. And sustainability is top of mind for me because I believe that we need to leave our world in a better place for those that follow us. And I think it's an appropriate thing. It's like when you visit a friend, that you leave things better than they were when you got there. So, if we just followed that principle, it'd be great. I have retired 3 times. I was an officer at AT&T, an officer at BlackBerry, and an officer at Samsung Electronics. And I'm now the founder of Atlanta Tech Park, which is a global tech accelerator. And I like innovating and inventing, so that's kind of my passion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Routman, and first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is the first time I've been part of this fantastic event, so I really am enjoying it so far. I am the Chief Sustainability and Quality Officer of a flooring and decorative surfaces company called HMTX Industries. We are headquartered in Norwalk, Connecticut, and we have offices around the world. We're a global company, and we sell to many, many types of customers, including the commercial customers as well as residential customers, through one of our biggest companies that we work with, which is the Home Depot, a company known all over, the United States, obviously. And I think for sustainability, for me, has always been a very, very personal topic. I have been fascinated by this subject since I was a small child, which led me to study geology at UGA, and then eventually I went to Georgia Tech and studied public policy with a focus in environmental policy. I've been working for the government, in the aerospace industry, and also in the utility industry. And so I now am in the flooring industry, and people don't realize it, but there's plenty of work and great objectives around sustainability in the flooring industry because the customers demand it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the primary reason why my job is what it is, and I'm here to serve the customer and serve the environment and the community as a whole.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Robin. There's, like I said, this is a pretty, we're all very passionate about it, and I think everyone that's joining us this evening share that. So I think we have a poll question. Is that, there we go. If you don't mind, take a second and share some of that, share a yes or no to that, because we're going to talk a little bit about it. And really, it's kind of exampled by what Stuart is and Last Bottle Clothing Company is focused on, which is moving from helping us move from a linear economy to a circular one. So we'll see what the responses are to that. In the meantime, I have some fun facts. It actually takes 7,000 liters of water to create a pair of blue jeans. The fashion industry accounts for about 8% of the global greenhouse gases. While Americans, we only represent 5% of the global population, we are actually the largest consumers of about 26% of the world's energy. That's, every time we open a refrigerator door, 30% of the cold air escapes, and office buildings use 19% of all energy consumed in the US. Great. Okay, well, here we have our poll results. And this is really good because most everyone really seems to be familiar with what it means, what a circular economy is really about. Let's start with some questions. I've got a couple things to ask you both and potentially to contribute to as well. What do you see as a new normal for sustainability and resilience in homes and businesses in our cities and communities? I mean, I know that's kind of a broad approach, but if you can give some insight on that. And then I want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing in technologies, lifestyle, and trending, because you're within the hub.
Yeah, I sit on a couple of corporate boards, and some of the, as you think of it, the new normal, one of the ahas that they had is being able to really function and work as a company without having to go into the office.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go back to look at how to return to work, how they actually benefit the carbon footprint, because as a corporate responsibility, they really need to report what they're doing in the sustainability space. And not that I want to say a lot of corporations are giving it sort of lip service, but I think this is one where they really have learned, hey, I can operate without having all this office space and all this commuting in and out, and the emissions and on and on and on. But when they have figured this out, they've also learned, guess what? By us having online meetings, we're not printing all these presentation slides. We're not creating and generating all this paper. And so they've had this aha moment that, yeah, they didn't do the transportation, they didn't go in the office, but guess what? Now they haven't generated all the paper that they were generating when they were in the office. Not that we would think that everybody's printing things, but people still print a lot of material when they're in the physical office and when they're meeting with people. I don't know whether it's a comfort thing to have it in their hands because they're afraid the technology is not going to work when they're in the meeting. But I think the new normal, or the aha, is I can trust that my team is getting their job done without physically seeing them in an office space. So now I can really open the doors up and say, you want to work from home the whole time? Your job lends itself for you to be able to do that. Maybe you come into the office one day a week, but guess what? I'm not going to, as an employer, have a physical space for you that's just sitting there empty 5 days a week. You're going to be hot desking or sharing a desk, or maybe working in an open environment or a pooled environment. So I think they're resizing what they're going to do. Don't know how it's going to end up or whether they're going to all retract or not, but I think it's fascinating to, all these technologies we put in place years ago so that we didn't have to fly as much, because our impetus for reducing travel was just the travel budget was so big. And now we're learning, hey, I really didn't need to do all that corporate travel. I'm still getting the same job done. I'm still actually able to produce without having to get in the airplane and fly for that 1 hour meeting.
I think to your point about the travel side, I'm involved in, in global hospitality, and there have been some studies and surveys, and, Business Traveler has responded and stating that, what they've realized, they don't need, to your point, they don't need to travel. They don't need to fly to the other side of the world for a one-day meeting. Spend 3 days to get 1 day in face-to-face.
Exactly.
So it's really having some impact. Rochelle, what are your thoughts on it?
So, yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. We have done a lot of remote work, but I'm thinking about the bigger picture and what the aha moments are there. And the major thing that comes to mind for me is that there's a strong connection between what you have been speaking about in terms of reducing the carbon footprint and this crisis. With COVID, there's a relationship between our health and climate change, and then there's this intersection with social justice as well. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that many of the people that are still working and going to work are those that do not have other options. They're people that work in warehouses. They're people that, maybe work in, the logistics, transportation, things like that. And so their health is more at risk. And, there's so many aspects to this, but certainly we have seen that while the carbon footprint has declined, we hope that as a society that maybe we can rebuild ourselves in a new way that is more beneficial to humanity and all of life on Earth. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about.
Okay, yeah, that's, let's talk a little bit about some of the innovation that's really been accelerated. And I say that because I'm primarily in like the global hospitality space, which is, as you know, is dead. It's not, there's not a lot going on. But I'm also associated with a virtual event company, a virtual solutions company, and they are extremely busy. And there's a lot of technologies that not only contribute to the sustainability and engagement of digital. And there's things that have been initiated to kind of safeguard, to your point, the employees that are essential to continuing our business and our economy. Robin, do you have any thoughts? I mean, are you seeing anything that's like from the technology standpoint, or because look, I mean, what we're doing right here, companies like Zoom and all those, I mean, what's been accelerated to a point, I mean, to have the capacity to work from home. I mean, the entire Google workforce is, I think they've been kind of kept out of the office till June of 2021. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and you see, then you have the converse of that. You have the airlines that are, I think they reported today, they have 65% less travel this time of year than they did last year. In a way, that's sort of good news. For Delta, it's not good news because, of course, I think that's making them have to look at another round of layoffs. And then when you see some of the things there, some of the meetings that we're now going to be going to that are being discussed, if we do travel, the travel that they're wanting us to have is to travel from point A to B, but stay at the airport, stay at the hotel at the airport, so that we're not then getting in a bus or a taxi or going someplace else. So I'm seeing a few things, but from the technology forefront, I have seen every possible new invention around face masks, breathable, washable, reusable, ones with little filtration, nanotechs with sensors in it. Very cool. The one that I looked at that came out to the health tech event a couple weeks ago actually helps you with compliance. So even after the COVID event, if there's somebody that is in an environment where they're supposed to have the mask on while they're making your food, or have the mask on while they're, walking around in the hospital, it'll actually report whether or not they've been in compliance. Makes the mask very comfortable because it's very lightweight out of a new material. And the little sensor itself will actually protect the person in the event it picks up any hazardous chemicals or smells. So, I mean, I think seeing those technologies come out, I think, that's very clever. It's putting a couple of technologies together around the face mask. And then we heard the CDC guy here today say that wearing a mask is more important than a vaccine. So I'm not sure that was a good thing to say, because I think we want both. But that's the biggest improvement, is being able to, because I've worn a mask all day, just tried to see what it felt like to be on that front line, whether I be, in a hospitality situation or one of the a manufacturing line worker, and wearing a mask all day. I don't know how the physicians do it. Yeah. I start feeling like I'm hyperventilating. I fog up my glasses. I have all this, so compliance, for it to work, you have to be wearing it. And so, seeing all the new innovation and where they fit and they conform and they're more breathable, I think is very productive. Been a real heightened awareness around comfort and care.
Yeah, I think, post-COVID and hospitality, what I'm seeing that's really been focused on is creating contactless services and an experience that you can have access to the space that you want. You've got the comfort and security. You don't have to touch things. You can tap it. I mean, we're seeing it everywhere.
Talk to it.
Yeah. The voice recognition, a lot of the technologies just coming in and commands and tapping. And
yeah, I'm even testing a hydrogen peroxide vapor machine. It's almost kind of like, have you seen the vapor cigarettes that people smoke? Yep. It doesn't leave a film on anything, but anything it comes in contact, it will clean. So, and these are little modules. They're very small. You could put one in your suitcase. You go into your hotel room and you could vape it with food grade hydrogen peroxide. And I thought, okay, well, that's a very clever, one of these little units does cost a lot right now, but once they scale them, that might be something that's offered, that way, that the room is, even the last person that left the room, even though it was clean, you can do those type of things.
So those are some the types of technologies in the flooring industry are related to cleaning, and this is a very important topic right now. And what we've seen is that some customers, they need a lot of guidance because they're overdoing it, disinfectant, and actually creating more harm in their indoor environments, and in their, homes and businesses. But there are prescribed ways to clean, and the CDC, in fact, has provided a lot of guidance. And so, we suggest to our customers that we refer them to the CDC so they don't overdo it, and they always relabel. And now there's electrostatic cleaners, for example, that the airlines are using in between flights to clean every surface, not just the floor, but the seats, the seat pockets.
The mister.
Yeah, so it's really, I think a lot of this is around cleanliness and health. And, in hospitals, of course, this is extremely critical right now. And people are, they have to have a clean COVID test before they can even go to a hospital. So it's really tough right now, I think, for people that are in need of medical care.
Yeah. Hey, before we, there's so many different areas that we can really go down, but I want to kind of bring us back because we talked a little bit about, kind of the remote workforce and kind of how the economy is changing in buildings. Let's talk about, some of your thoughts around the future of our commercial spaces. I mean, I live downtown Atlanta. I'm surrounded by beautiful commercial space. And what do you think, what do you think is going to happen with that? I mean, I have some ideas, but I'd love to hear yours.
So I see a little bit of a reduced demand for the commercial space.
Or repurposing?
Pardon me?
I said, or a repurposing.
Or a repurposing, yeah.
What we're seeing right now is, even in the companies I work with, they're trying to buy more floors. They're trying to spread people out. They're trying to open up spaces. So they're actually looking at more footprint and repurpose that footprint to have more of the open space and have some of the shared workspace. It's kind of interesting. I thought the converse, that there would be a lot of empty space.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're looking at the commercial investments, we're seeing a lot of traction that more space is being consumed by the same tenant, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Here in a shared workspace at the Atlanta Tech Park, we have 45,000 square feet. We were already spaced out, which is good. We never actually physically closed. We've been open the whole time because we had 7 essential businesses here. And so have done a lot of work. We've got this little thing in the front when you walk in, it reads your face. You have to wear a mask. We'll hand you a mask if you don't have one. There's hand sanitizers everywhere because of the washing. And we've been quite pleased with our results. We haven't, at this point in time, had any issues. But I've been looking at all kinds of things to attach to the HVAC, because there is new technologies coming out in the HVAC space. Right, that would be helpful in the cleaning process as well. And because I want to, it's that need for continuous cleaning that is
vigilance. Yes.
We learn
and I think that's really interesting, Robin, that people are spreading out more. I love hearing that. I know some of my colleagues, their companies have switched to 100% remote, but this might open up space for other companies that want to remain, in more collaborative work environment. And I know that I personally prefer that. I think that a lot of these remote technologies are great for filling in when we, because of COVID, maybe some businesses have shut down for the time being, but I personally hope that we can get back to a more normal situation, because there's really nothing as good as face-to-face communication and being able to be in a room with somebody and create wonderful ideas together.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we're going to learn how to do that balance now. I think that's one thing that we've gone to one extreme, and now we're going to come hopefully back to a nice balance. But I would have thought we'd have seen, and now I think the malls are a different situation. I think our malls are going to suffer a little bit for a while until they figure out how to repurpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be where we see a lot more repurposing.
Yeah, and I think that's already a trend that's starting to happen, where you see kind of creating kind of mixed use with medical offices and residential and retail. So
making more of a community out of the mall as opposed to just being retail.
Yeah. Right.
And
I think that's beneficial to all of us, right?
Yeah.
But that started because of the online shopping.
Yeah, well, see, but right, that's to your point. I mean, this pandemic has actually forced all of us to kind of do a reset. And for some of us, it's been kind of life-changing, and for others, it's been beyond inconvenient. But I think the majority of us have really had a chance to wow, let me reassess my priorities.
Right.
Well, that's true. People are understanding what's really important to them, and we miss being around other people. you know, friends and miss going to live concerts. You know, I know some of them are coming back, but there are people that don't want to take the risk.
You're at the drive-in.
At the drive-in.
That's
Yeah,
the
so
drive-in movies are coming back, right?
isn't that amazing? Something from, you know, that we thought was dead for 30 years. But drive-ins were always fun. So yeah, but you know, really when you think about our time and how precious our time is, it really relates to this, because I think we've all also had to make better use of our time. We've, you know, still had our, you know, intense workloads and our really busy lives, but we've had to find other ways to do it. And in some cases, we've had to become more efficient, you know, because we can't just
Actually,
walk down.
started
Yeah.
fixing my own things in the house because you couldn't get other people to come help you fix them. You learn how to fix a lot of things on your own. We even made the decision to paint the outside of our house, and I had a lot of fun picking out new paint because there's all kinds of qualities in paint now that you would have never thought. I got a paint that's rust resistant, mildew resistant, does all these other kind of wonderful things. And I think, Diane, you were even talking about a paint that actually absorbs CO2. I didn't know that one, so I went looking for that too. I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the coating material is called graphene. It's used in aerospace. It's amazing, and it could be major, you know, have an impact in a lot of different areas, including, you know, walls, buildings, you know, healthy buildings, flooring. So yeah, there's some really interesting stuff out there. So it's interesting because to your point, you're doing some things, we're all doing things that we didn't think that we would be doing or have the time to do, but we're actually finding some pleasure in doing it.
I mean, I've been spending hours in my garden restoring what I thought was a hopeless situation. I've also found an outdoor gym. I don't know if you've ever seen these where they have outdoor equipment, and you know, instead of going to an indoor gym, I've been doing that, which has been a lot of fun, and I think it's been a great workout. We've been cooking inside, you know, at our home a lot instead of going to restaurants.
Well, that takes, listen, you're kind of going into, you know, one of the questions, which was, you know, it's around, you know, for all of us. I mean, obviously it's the three of us that are talking, but, you know, what are some of the things to kind of create that work-life balance? And really that's what you're sharing, is that, you know, it is that it's being more engaged directly in doing things around the house, spending time, you know, I mean, with your bubble. I mean, we all have our safe bubbles of people that we are comfortable with, and doing things that bring us some pleasure, like baking and cooking. You know, actually it got to a point where I think you couldn't find rising flour. I mean, you couldn't, the shelves were empty. I mean, you couldn't. But you know what's interesting is, you know, I have a friend who's a therapist, and another who's a divorce attorney, and she says, you know, there's a lot of people getting divorced, and the therapist says, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, thought they were happily married who were discovering they're not all that happily married. But there are realizations and opportunities to kind of get back and really understand what their life is about and where they're at, because we've been faced with this, and going beyond it. It's, you know, we have an opportunity to make it better by focusing on the things that are more sustainable, having smart buildings.
Allows you to reset.
Yes, to do the reset.
Yeah.
We have a poll we want to ask. If we can have our poll put out, there you go. If you don't mind, take a minute and share your thought around this. This would be great. We could talk a little bit about it. We don't get to take the poll, but we can have our own opinion, I guess.
I think that, you know, healthy indoor buildings, I like the thought of that. It's like, how do you determine that?
Mhm.
One that's going to come about. I've been working with an aviation team trying to recycle carpet. So,
Okay.
yeah, which has been interesting.
Wow. So everyone thinks of one of three things, and not necessarily the health of our building. Well, and that's part of what we're here for, right, is to talk a little bit about all of that. Climate change, obviously, we're seeing some of that, well, everywhere. I moved to Atlanta from Portland, Oregon. You know, I can't even begin to tell you how, you know, heartbreaking it is for what's going on over there, all along the West Coast. I mean, it's almost like the perfect storm between, you know, super low humidity and high winds, and just so we're seeing a lot of that. And here with the storm, you know, we're looking, you know, I'm originally from South Florida, where you've got, you know, a king tide, you know, and a full moon, and, you know, A1A, which is the main beach street, is underwater. They're in Miami, they're literally like creating the roads a little bit higher and moving the doors, and just to, you know, eke a couple more years out. So it's, climate change is definitely here, and there are things that we can do, and hopefully, you know, supporting the businesses and the innovators like Stuart and others who are really looking at creating, you know, a more circular economy and the things that are more sustainable is really super important. So let's
just mention on that topic that you know, we used to think about climate change as something that would affect future generations, and now things have come about much quicker. You know, and so I think it was always a way to kind of put off the inevitable and put off action, was just to think, okay, well, you know, it's our future generations that we're concerned about, but really the time is now.
right.
We can no longer put this off. And it's really a tragedy that, unfortunately, you know, there's still a lot of debate about this and people not looking at the science. But it's, you know, obviously happening. And I'm not sure what more proof, you know, people need. I mean, we have, you know, the tremendous fires that have been going on now for several years, the extreme heat in Europe, and, you know, even, by the way, fires burning in some of our most coldest regions on the planet. As you mentioned, Diane, the flooding and the terrible storms we've been seeing as well, which have all been predicted. So I also believe that, you know, if we take action, that we can turn this around, and there's still some hope, but, you know, we can't really put it off any longer.
Right. That's very true. And there is a lot of innovations around. I mean, like you talk about renewable energy.
Yes.
I mean,
my friend in San Francisco is installing, and he says everybody in his neighborhood is doing this. There's these little panels that run up the side of the back of your house, not on your roof, but above the back of your house. And it can pull in the solar energy from any avenue, any reflection. Only takes 3 little panels. He said it cost him about $20,000 to install it. I wish our government was, or even our state governments were doing what Holland was doing. They just help you pay for them because it pulls power off the grid. And he says his whole house is powered by this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And he says, you know, so, you know, 3 little panels, and I'm thinking 3, because, you know, we used to think of solar panels, your whole roof had these things on top of them, and you're afraid to do it because then what if you have a leak in your roof? Then you've got to pull these things up. And I thought, wow, if you can install them inside of your house at some port, you know, where they can pull out and position and all that kind of stuff. And he says they're really easy. I thought, wow, we're getting better and better at this. And, you know, being able to pull away from those big power companies to be able to do something and sustain your own footprint. And if we could do more of that. So if you ride on the trains, I take the train from the Netherlands all the way down into France. There's this high-speed train. And as you're flipping through the little towns, every roof has solar panels on it. Everybody's house is sustainable. But they're all government supported.
Right.
because, a lot of us some of us can shell out that kind of money to put solar panels up, but most of us, need a little incentive. And I tried to do it here at the park, and here's the funny thing. I got this thing from our local power company. I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
And it said, do you want to switch to solar power? And I thought, yeah, I would love to do that. So I went to go talk to him to do this. It was going to cost me 2 cents more to go to solar power than to stay on what I was on. I'm like, all right, I'm already sending you almost a $6,000 check a month. I don't think I want to add more pennies to that. How do I get to where when you're offering me that kind of, let me pop off the grid and I'll go with the solar generated, it should be cheaper.
Right. Well, they're trying to get you to pay for their infrastructure, which is outdated. To your point, though, on the solar panels, I've heard, there in some communities, there are people who are investing in a couple of the panels, not the whole thing, but they're creating microgrids using blockchain.
Yep.
So, and you know what? The municipalities are obviously don't want that. They don't want people, they want to make it illegal for you to get power from somewhere other than them.
Yes, this has been
their domain. So there are a number of things around how do we get to be more sustainable, and how does it become more convenient and more cost efficient?
Well, this whole movement towards, people being more independent, like people can set up their own, businesses and sell things, on the computer. They don't have to depend upon, these massive organizations. And we're talking about, utilities and solar power and, why, even our water infrastructure, like, we're really at risk when you think about this, because if we're all depending on one centralized source for our utility, whatever they are, if something happens, then, as it does, we're really at a severe loss, So it really makes sense for people to generate some of their own energy. And there's a lot of laws and regulations. And as you mentioned, Diane, the utility companies don't necessarily want people to do this. So that's why it's really, really important for people to understand what the Public Service Commission does and to vote for people that will stand up for the citizens. And a lot of folks don't realize how important their role is in the state. So please, be sure to investigate that and find candidates and elect those people that are willing to represent us.
Yeah, you definitely.
I would be willing to switch to solar power, even if it was the same price.
And it should be, and basically the utilities, they purchase, renewable energy, and then they charge you more for it. And it's like you were saying, Diane, is to pay for their purchase. But if we were able to do it ourselves, that would be a lot easier. And take that part out of the equation. Yeah.
One of the initiatives they had in Oregon when I lived there was as a homeowner, if you buy the panels, they would buy the electricity from you at a higher rate for anything that you didn't use. So I knew friends, people who were getting checks.
Trying to help you. Yeah.
They were getting, payment. Because they were contributing to the grid, and so the investment you had was on the hardware. It all went in to support other people and it produced other sorts, so it was really, of course, I don't know that program's still in place. Those are definitely the things that need to happen again to support the innovations and the potential for us to more consciously move in that direction of having sustainability in our environment, post-COVID or not. I live in a building that's, we pay a gardener to harvest food on the rooftop. We pay extra to recycle our glass because nobody wants to take the glass. We compost. But we pay extra for that because it's obviously what we believe in, but it's not the kind of thing, we're a small community, so we can do that. A lot of people don't have, those options, and they don't have the financial resources to do that.
And see, I still separate my glass and just trying to figure out where to take it. So I have to figure that out. Because they used to take our glass. We used to put our glass in and if you went to the Netherlands, which I believe they recycle everything.
They're circular. In most part, they are living a more circular economy.
You go over there and you get fined for the amount of waste that you put out in your trash can. So they are encouraging you to do everything you can to recycle whatever you have and or do something with it before you put it in that waste can, whether the waste is into the plastic or into the paper. And then you have to not only put your plastic and paper away and your glass, it has to be sort of clean. So it has to be, like we do with leftover. I went to the restaurant and I've got this styrofoam thing with stuff in it. They want you to take the waste out. You don't have to like wash it in the dishwasher, but it has to be. So they spend a lot of time and energy making compost heaps in their backyard, creating that kind of thing for their garden. They do a lot of gardening in their own yards or even on their patios and rooftops. So, I mean, you see a lot of clever ideas when you come over there. They have dredged all the canals, and with the plastic, they've made it floating gardens. Wow. And so, when you see that, you're thinking, okay, well, we could have a lot of floating gardens.
That's amazing. I know Germany, of course, does something a little more controversial. They burn most of their waste, but it goes to generate energy. And this has been something that they've been doing for years and years. So at least in Atlanta, we have a decent recycling program, a curbside recycling program, which I'm very, happy that we have. But in North Georgia, where our offices are, there's no recycling programs. And so people have to drive their recyclables to a recycling center that is not really supported by the local government. It's all volunteer operated. And so, it's difficult. It's a burden to the people that live there to recycle, because I guess the mayor and the people that run the government in the city don't see it as a priority.
Right. Well, that's the disconnect, because there are some people who feel like the climate issue and the pollution and all that, it's not going to be their problem because they don't, they're going to be gone in 30 years. There are some people that really don't care. And I think that's, to your point, we all need to make an effort to really understand who we can support to be in a position to help protect our environment and represent our values, I guess. I want to unless you have anything else, I want to make sure that we have enough time to open it up for questions. Addie, can we go ahead and open it up for some questions?
Sure. So we do have a couple.
Okay.
Can we call Stuart back? There we go. Awesome. Hey. So the first question is actually for Stuart, and people want to know if your t-shirts can be bought online.
That's an easy question. Yes, they can at lastbottleclothing.com. And we have a new load of inventory coming in about 2 weeks because our supply chain shut down to make PPE for the past 6 months. So we were down to just beautiful blue shirts, but we'll have more in stock in a couple weeks, but we absolutely do sell online. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll actually, after I'm done this, I'll put the website up. Okay, so the next question, it doesn't have a person in particular, but it says, please comment on the recent New York Times article claiming recyclable materials often are not actually being recycled, and that the oil and gas industry lied about the recyclability of plastics to make consumers comfortable with using more plastic. This seems a blow to the circular economy if it is true that plastic degrade and often can't be recycled, as the article claims.
Who wants to take a run at that?
So I'll start with it is a lot of times when people say we recycle, they are usually not recycling, they're downcycling. So I won't mention the specific airlines, but I'll start with the airlines. They pull their carpets and they're driven somewhere across a border, chopped up in pieces, melted, and sometimes brought back into our playgrounds, which is a downcycle of the carpet. But in that process, I'm now carrying it somewhere through with trucking. I'm trucking it back. So when you actually look at all the capability, I'm not sure that there was any recycle in that downcycle.
No benefit.
And we're trying to go to the process where you take the carpet out of the airline and you do the same thing Stuart's doing. Chop it up, melt it, and reweave the flooring for the airline. And that the airline is then truly recycling and not downcycling. And so you'll see in a lot of reports that I don't think there's really good governance of, oh yeah, we're recycling. Well, you know, okay, you just made this into asphalt, or you made it into playgrounds, or you did something with it. But the process by which you did that probably burned just as much as something else. So you haven't really evaluated the full end-to-end process. And I don't know the numbers on this, but I'll go back and look at it. But even our batteries that are in the electric cars, to create one of those batteries takes a lot of fossil fuel and manufacturing, to the point that you would probably have to drive that electric car, use that battery for like 30 or something years to make it back. So, you know, you have a lot of people promoting the electric car, and I agree with that. I think that's a nice, cleaner way to do things. And maybe we haven't looked at the full end-to-end holistic view of emissions around the car and that type of stuff. But, you know, I think we have to really understand the full cycle to know that you really have a true circular.
Right. The carbon footprint is what you're saying, because you're trading carbon credits for cycling down, and then creating more of a carbon footprint by the logistics of moving things around.
Yeah, exactly.
There's been a change also in the market in terms of plastics, used plastics. At one time, they were more valuable, but, you know, speaking about the carpet industry, which my company doesn't sell carpet, but I have experience with that. There used to be many, many more carpet recyclers in business all over the country, and they were very eager to get their hands on that, you know, those materials. But just because of the volatile economy and the changing prices in these materials, it's kind of hard to believe, but the raw materials are actually less expensive in some cases.
Yes.
So this is also, you know, creating problems for the recycling industry. And I think it's very unfortunate, but I do believe that there are a lot of recyclables that people imagine are being recycled, and they are being thrown away. I'm not sure that, you know, I think there's many factors, as I mentioned, the economy. I don't know that we can blame it all on the plastics industry. But I think all in all, I think people are really concerned, particularly about single-use plastics.
Yes.
Some locations are banning, for example, plastic bags at grocery stores, and plastic straws and things like that. And I mean, I think that is a good move. You know, I think single-use plastics are really detrimental to our environment.
Yeah. So within the first 2 or 3 months that I moved to Portland, they banned plastic grocery bags. And I'm from South Florida, right? So it was a change. It was a shift. But you know what? That's the whole part of this, is kind of taking that low-hanging fruit of single-use plastics, which are really, you know, it should be relatively easy for us to take them out. and focus and support and subsidize the sustainable innovation and opportunities that we have. You know, this conversation, I feel like we could probably go on for a while, and unfortunately, our time has ended, and we've answered our last question. You know, thank you all for really being a part of this. It means a lot, and it was just really enjoyable to be able to, you know, have this conversation.
Diane, thank you for having us here.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Pleasure. Thank you. Nice to hear your message, Stuart.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you
Definitely.
so much, you guys. So before we go, thank you so much for your time, for both the participants as well as the speakers that we had tonight. And I think most importantly, thank you for bringing awareness to the topic. Personally, I learned a lot, and I think that it puts it into perspective. And hopefully, as I did, a lot of you are able to take notes and somehow help the environment, right? So again, thank you so much. Before we go, we have a couple of announcements. We wanted to alert you of a new program that Women Driving Innovation will be launching, and it's developing. It's actually a new mentoring program for skills and career development for women. It's going to be called ROAR, Reaching Out and Raising Up. So please be on the lookout in the Atlanta Innovation Forum, as well as Women Driving Innovation's website. An email will go out with more information, how to sign up, and the type of mentors that we will have access to. So be on the lookout. We're very proud of this program. Next event, it's going to be October 13 at 6 p.m. via GoToWebinar as well. We're going to be tackling the subject of privacy and security, keeping pace with the explosion of online traffic and the surge of online threats. We're going to have representatives from the FBI, Microsoft, and GSMA, and it's gearing up to be extremely interesting, and I'm sure that a lot of you will be interested in participating, so be on the lookout for this. Lastly, thank you to our sponsors, RightPoint, Stone Research Group, Carabiner Communications, Stable Kernel, and Cox Communications. Thank you for the support. And lastly, thank you to all of you for participating, and we hope to see you in about a month for our next event. This event has been recorded, and you will have access to it in the coming weeks. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you.